Hey everyone, we are going to move on from the Renaissance and talk about something that occurred around the same time as the Renaissance, but away from Europe, and that is European exploration. So, by the time this video has come to an end, what you should be able to do is identify the reasons that European countries decided to branch out beyond Europe and explore the seas. List the technological advancements that made exploration easier, and be able to describe the achievements of the three biggest Portuguese explorers. What we're going to focus on today is Portugal and their exploration east to the east of Europe, to the tip of Africa and further on into India. Prince Henry the Navigator, Bartholomew Diaz, and Vasco da Gama will be the three people we talk about today. So first off, the reasons for exploration. Europeans traded with Asia for centuries before the Renaissance, throughout the Middle Ages, but it was always over land. And we've talked about the Silk Road before and the other trading routes from Europe eastward towards China and into India through the Hindu Kush and all of that. That should be completely familiar to you. But a couple of things happened in the late Middle Ages that led those trading routes to be disrupted and harder to actually navigate. One was the Black Death, which killed a bunch of people, and as a result, there weren't enough people to actually traverse those trading routes. Also, the breakup of the Mongol Empire. The Mongol Empire sort of stabilized that region, and when it fell and a bunch of other individual warlords took over that land, they weren't all very friendly towards the European traders. So it's very difficult as a result of those two factors to use those trade routes. So as a result, they began to look to the sea as a possible way to reach these areas in Asia where goods were that they wanted to have. The most desirable good from Asia were spices. Spices were very hard to get in Europe. They weren't found there. They're very difficult to obtain from Asia because it was so far away. And because it was so far away and so difficult to get, they were also incredibly expensive. Spices had a variety of uses. They could obviously be used to preserve or flavor food, which is, of course, something we use them for today. They could also be used in things like perfumes and medicines. So they had multiple uses. They were very, very valuable. They were a hot commodity, and they were hard to get. Now, Muslim and Italian traders and merchants had originally dominated the spice trade. What they would do is the Muslim traders would get it from Asia. They would sail it on the Mediterranean Sea to Italy, and then Italian traders would then go north into Europe and sell them at a marked up rate because they wanted to turn a profit. Well, European countries got tired of paying the middleman, as it were, that being Italy, and decided they wanted to try to get the goods directly. So that's why you see some exploration of European countries trying to develop trading routes of their own. There was also a little bit of the Renaissance in this, the idea that we want to learn more, we want to understand other cultures, we want to know about the world. So that drives exploration as well, the desire to get out there and learn as much as they possibly could. I call it the Renaissance spirit, so to speak. Now, before they could explore, they had to up the quality of their equipment. There were several technological advancements that made exploration by water much easier. One is the astrolabe, which is sort of like a compass that gets used looking up, and it helped determine what latitude a ship was at. They would have like star charts, and they would know where stars should be in the sky if they were pointed in a certain direction and at a certain location. So you can see at the top there, that's an astrolabe. And there's also a diagram of a person using it. You would hold it by the ring on top, and you would point that little compass-looking thingy at a star in the sky that you knew the position of based on your star charts. And you would do some mathematical calculations, and you could actually use the angle of the star to the horizon to determine where you were. So that is a very, very valuable navigational tool that helps explorers develop these new trading routes by water. There were also better maps. The art of map making is called cartography. That's going to help explorers, obviously. And they began to develop better ships. Ship makers in Europe began to look at different designs. Europeans often had square sails on their ships, and those weren't the best for navigating, say, into the wind. So they started doing things like putting triangular sails on the ship, too, which is what Arabs had been doing for a long time. And that actually helps going across wind or even into the wind as you're trying to sail on the water. And these new types of ships were called caravels, and you see a picture of it there. That's what you think of when you think of European exploration and people discovering new worlds. You think of ships that look sort of like that. So make sure you know that term, though, caravels. It's a very important kind of new ship. So the first country that did a lot of exploration by water from Europe was Portugal. And that's not really one you think of. It's a pretty small country. You see on the map there, it's to the west of Spain on the Atlantic Ocean. But they had some money based on some trading they had done, and they used their wealth to explore the coast of Africa. They knew that in order to get to India and to Asia where the spices were, they were going to have to go around the tip of Africa. And the first explorer is actually a member of the Portuguese royal family. His name was Prince Henry. He became known as Henry the Navigator. He was a younger son of the King of Portugal, so he wasn't going to become the king. He wasn't the heir to the throne. But he had access to a ton of money because he was a royal. So he began using the country's wealth to build better ships, like we talked about, and begin exploring the western coast of Africa, looking for gold, trading with the natives, and exploring that area. So Prince Henry the Navigator doesn't get all the way over to India, but he does lay the groundwork, and he's really one of the pioneers of Portuguese exploration. Now, eventually, the Portuguese do make it all the way over to India. First, they had to get around Africa, and they didn't know exactly how far south that was going to be, and it took them a long time to figure out how to get all the way down there. Bartholomew Diaz, in 1488, became the first European to reach the southern tip of Africa. And the weather there was really, really, really bad. Some really bad storms, very turbulent seas, rough waters. And he originally named it the Cape of Storms. Of course, he named it that in Portuguese, the Cape of Storms. And when he came home, he told his father, the king, I found this area that's the tip of Africa, and we know now how far we have to go to get around it, and I've called it the Cape of Storms. And his dad was like, that name kind of sucks. That doesn't sound very inviting at all. So they decided to rename it the Cape of Good Hope. The name referring to the fact that they had hope that they would find a trading route to India by water. So they thought the name of Cape of Good Hope sounded a little bit sunnier than Cape of Storms, a little more inviting, as it were, right? The first Portuguese explorer to actually sail all the way to India was Vasco da Gama, and he did it in 1497. And he got there, he obtained quite a few very valuable spices, and he sailed back to Portugal with them, and he sold them at about a 3,000% profit. So he did pretty well for himself. Over time, the Portuguese were able to establish a very wealthy trading presence in India, where they would essentially leave people there to buy spices when they were cheap. They would then store those spices in a warehouse near the port, and then when Portuguese ships came back to India, they would load those spices that had been bought at a low price onto the ships, take them back to Portugal, sell them for a ton of money, and make absolute gangbusters. So they ended up developing a very lucrative trade. Here is a map just to give you an idea of what the trading routes looked like. The purple first is Henry the Navigator. Like I said, he did not go all the way down to the tip of Africa, but he did do some exploration of the west coast. The orange arrows is Bartholomew Diaz. You see he did make it around the tip of Africa. Da Gama is in green, and you might look at his and say, well, why is he way out there? Like, why did he not just stick to the coast of Africa? That was pretty dangerous. The reason is they thought there was something else out there, another continent, So he went out of his way trying to discover another continent. Didn't quite go far enough. Not long after that, a Portuguese explorer by the name of Pedro Cabral, Cabral, doing something similar, found Brazil by accident. So that is why he went that far out. But you see, once he got around the tip of Africa, Da Gama establishes some trading posts along the East African coast at Mombasa and Mozambique, and finally makes it to the Indian port city of Calicut, which is a big spice trading depot, and that's where the Portuguese pretty much set up shop for their spice trading empire. So, hope you learned something here. Make sure you pay attention to the questions at the beginning of the video. Make sure you're able to answer those. Be prepared for a quiz in class. Going forward, we're going to talk about exploration of the Americas, which may be something you're a little familiar with already. Hopefully you'll learn something there too. As always, ask your teachers if you have any questions. Cheers.